Hello.
Hi, bonjour.
Bonjour. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's a very hot Tuesday here in New York City.
It's hot here too.
Oh, well, I guess it's hot everywhere.
My favorite state is nice and cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our first virtual visit of the month. We're here today with Sunny Buick, one of our lovely artist members, and we're so excited to get to see her studio and chat with her a bit more about her practice. She's got a lot of talent all packed in to that body, so we're excited to hear more and see what you've got going on. Just real quick, if you aren't familiar with our virtual visit program, it is a program that we do twice a month with our artist members. And so next week, we're also going to have another one at a regular scheduled time, 7 p.m. EST, with Tayo Okamoto. So I just wanted to go ahead and introduce Sunny so that we can get right into it and start looking at all this gorgeous artwork. Sunny was born in British Columbia, Canada, and later cut her teeth in the untamed California art scene. It sounds really wild and fun. Buick started tattooing in 1992, and in 2003, just before moving to Paris, France, Buick organized a gigantic art show and catalog called Sci-Fi Western with over 100 artists, which won an award with the Bay Guardian magazine and was the subject of a Juxtaposed magazine cover article. Very cool. In France, Buick has shown her work at the Museum of Modest Art in Sète, and later, or last year, was invited to participate in a comic art festival in Aix-en-Provence. Is that how you say that? I don't.
Provence.
Okay. Yeah. It's honestly really sad because I have French and French Canadian heritage, and I don't even know how to pronounce French words, let alone,
It's
speak a little
hard.
bit.
I still struggle with my accent.
Oh, yeah, can you say your name, the French version for
But
everyone?
yeah, when I introduce myself, I have to say my name with a French accent. Otherwise, people think they're talking about I'm talking that from Sony. That's how you say Sony. You say Sunny. Sunny. You say Sunny. So I introduce myself Sunny Buick.
Gorgeous. It's so
Otherwise,
beautiful.
people don't get, and it's so funny when French people say English words that they use English words sometimes, but they pronounce them in the French way, and sometimes I just like it. I can't understand because I'm like, and then you go and you like correct them, or you don't really correct them, but you like say the word
Back to them.
again with American accent, and they think you're correcting them, but you're just like correcting your brain. You say
Yeah.
it's.
I'm sure that they love that. I'm sure they love being corrected on language.
No, 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 no.
Well, I'm so excited to get to do this virtual visit with you. I would love to hear a little bit more about, what brought you from Canada and California all the way to Paris, France. And it sounds like you've been living there for 20 years?
Yeah, 20 years.
Wow.
I just happened to be born in Canada. My mom was from the Bay Area, and she was a hippie. And towards the end of the 60s, she felt a lot of persecution. And she said that she left the United States because after the Kennedys got shot, she was like, I'm out of here. But a lot of hippies were moving to Canada and buying land and like living off the land. So that's what she did. I was actually born in a cabin in the woods, no electricity, no running water.
Wow.
There was a well and a toilet outside, and that didn't last very long with a new baby because winters are really hard, and it's hard to like heat water up on a wood burning stove, to wash your dish. Yeah, that did. So she moved back to California. I was still very, very young. And so I grew up as an American, but with never like any, like a really identity that's like really like I am American. I just don't feel like
You were,
that I need to stay anywhere.
you were born with a wild spirit, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, actually, my full name is Gypsy Sunshine Buick, and So I would say that describes me pretty well, the gypsy spirit and the sunshine. Sunshine's a little hard to live with, honestly, so it's much easier for me to go by sunny. I don't have to explain myself. myself.
Yeah. I mean, but it's a beautiful name, and I can definitely tell your mom was a hippie.
Yeah. You mentioned the sci-fi western show. It we just celebrated the 20-year anniversary, and I decided to make a video because I had video footage of the opening night. It was huge. It was like a really big gallery, and there was a live band and stuff that fit into the theme. I had all this footage that I never did anything with, and since its 20 years anniversary was coming up, and a lot had changed in the lowbrow art scene. Some of the people are continuing to do artwork, some people don't. So I made a video telling the whole story about how I did it and used that footage and kind of like I got dressed up as a space cowgirl and I had a lot of fun with it. And that's on
That's so great. I actually was gonna, well, first of all, congratulations on that show. Working with 100 artists, coordinating with 100 artists to have a huge exhibition is no easy feat. So yeah, that's a really big deal, and it just sounds really cool. Like sci-fi western. That sounds great. That sounds right up my alley. So I'm glad that you were able to pull that footage and relive these wonderful moments too, because I also feel like a lot of times in the art world and the fast pace of how everything moves now, it's always just like one thing to the next thing, and we don't really have any regard for what's happened in the past, or go back and revisit those things and appreciate the things that we've done in the past. It's always like, what are we doing next?
right. And also just telling people I organized this show with 100 artists, that doesn't really like give people an idea of really what it was. And I feel like the film shows people like what it was, and also I tell the story about how long it took me a whole year to organize, and also like I started realizing working on it again that these ideas of the past and the future are really like meshed with my work right now, and so it made me feel really good that I am faithful, and that the themes are still running through my. It wasn't just like a fluke. It was really something important to me, and I think that I still have a lot to say about the past and the future. How do we navigate that, and how do we try to stay more in the present instead of like vacillating between the past and the future. I dress in vintage a lot, and ever since MAGA, I started really question. I know a lot of vintage wearing people have to like come out and say vintage style, not vintage values. They really have to like put it down. And I don't want to give off the impression that I think that the past was like super great.
Yeah.
I just like the style. And I've even considered recently totally changing my style and trying to like dress super futurist, because today I'm more like, okay, nostalgia is dangerous, and we as artists have a responsibility to kind of imagine and show people how exciting the future can be. I'm trying to do that with my art now, and I'm wondering if I do have to like show that part of me, like how I present in the world too. I would like to, if I had a lot of money, I would have all kinds of fashion designers like mixing stuff,
Yeah.
future look, but I think that would even be harder to walk down the street wearing that stuff than it is to like walk down the street pink hair vintage style.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you definitely can still incorporate the vintage, but put your own spin on it, especially, thinking about this, like, this identity of as an artist of like, or not, I hate saying this word, but sort of like your brand is like enmeshing these past and future ideas. And, I think you can reflect that in your own personal style too. I mean, I collect a lot of vintage as well, but I've noticed that I've sort of moved away from that too, because it almost is like a conforming kind of thing too, of like, I feel like I can branch out and start to be a little bit more unique to my personality, and incorporate contemporary styles, but also like I also am attracted to like these sort of like sort of sci-fi or otherworldly. Somebody has told me that I'm a cartoon character, that I dress like a cartoon character. I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that.
I with all that you said, even like wanting to look or being happy about looking like a cartoon character. And I'm wanting to like go out in the world and represent more of this kind of future positive. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet, but I have a lot of vintage clothes. I don't
Well,
want to get
you know, something I'm curious about. What two things to say. One thing to say is that I very much believe in this philosophy of artists being able to show an alternative perspective and sort of like do this task of world building for people so that, you know, we don't get stuck in the same modes and systems that keep us in the same place all the time, and like realize that we are all making this up as we go along, all of the rules and systems and everything. So I think it is really important to both show that we can create anything and do things differently, and also give people a place to, you know, kind of escape from whatever is going on in their lives and be somewhere else, you know, through our artwork. But the second thing I was going to say is, you know, you brought up this video, and I know that you are not just a painter and a tattoo artist, that you make video art, that you do performance, that you're now starting to get more into sculpture. And I saw that amazing tiger costume that you made. You made the whole entire thing, right?
No, I actually, it's a 1920s fencing costume.
Oh,
But I'm in a
wow.
little bit bad shape, and I painted on that. And then the head was a Chinese New Year's baby, a girl that I had for a long time, but I was never really happy with how her makeup was done. I was like, someday I'm going to redo her makeup. And then that idea for the performance came, and I decided to make her into a tiger girl. And I'm really interested in hybrids,
Yeah.
like half human, half animal. And I just like with paper mache, she had these big like paper mache buns was her hairdo. And the paper mache, I made paper mache ears over it, and then painted the whole thing.
Well, see,
And
I wonder if you could take vintage clothes, and I mean, I've seen other artists do this too, and I always think it's really impactful and cool, but like, you know, bring your personal brand and style and perspective to these vintage items by painting on them or altering them in some way that reflects, you know, what you're interested in.
yeah, I know that Susie Sue from Susie and the Banshees, she was doing that. Also, another childhood hero of mine, Exine Chervenka, she would she would wear vintage clothes but make them like her own. This is actually something that I made
Oh,
for
that's so
a
cool.
future performance art piece. I'm gonna I'm gonna dress up as a butterfly wings, and I'm going to be dancing with a skeleton, and I
Mm.
have a video piece in the background of, with like volcanoes and chainsaws, and I'm gonna waltz the page,
Nice.
which is kind of a
Danse
yeah,
macabre.
I need funding if anyone out there is rich.
You should look at, I don't know, it might be a US based thing, but there's a grant that I've known several artists have received that's for performance and maybe like video theater, but it's called the Franklin Furnace grant, and it comes around in spring every year. So you've already missed this cycle, but you can check it out. I think it usually opens in like, I think February. But yeah, definitely maybe look it up now and see what the guidelines and
February,
eligibility
that's
is.
an interesting date. I'm gonna leave this studio in February. It's the end of a 9-year
Oh,
lease,
wow.
and yeah, I'm making big changes. I'm retiring from tattooing,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, and I'm gonna try to. I'm gonna see what doors open, but I'm sure a door will open as soon as I'm ready. And one of the things that I'd like to do is to explore grant writing
Mm-hmm. That's
and
important.
getting more support like that, so that I can just do what I want to do instead of having to like work a job in order to like pay for my projects and ideas.
Yeah, no, that's very super important for artists too. And you know, one tip I would say, if you know, maybe you could think about proposing that the project is done in the US too if you can find more grants here. So maybe they'll, you know, that would help with eligibility requirements. But speaking of your studio, do you want to give us a quick tour of this wonderful studio space that you have?
Yeah, it's really small. So I'm just going to real quickly kind of do a 360 and show you what it's like. These, I'm in the Bastille area of Paris, and a lot of the first floor of the buildings are have these windows are studio spaces, because this was a furniture building district. And so it's really tiny. This space is 9 meters square, so that's like 24 square feet. I have a second space right next door, and it is has a toilet and a refrigerator and a sink, and I've made a lot of storage up high. I've made like shelves up high because the ceilings are pretty high, and I've got like painting storage, you know, where the paintings can stay upright. And I actually use this studio for tattooing too. You can see here, this is my tattoo table.
Oh, cool.
And there's a little sink behind there. And my studio totally looks different when I'm in tattoo mode. Everything gets put away. I'm actually in painting mode right now, so and the studio just gets smaller and smaller as time goes by, because I love to work big and I have 50 million projects going at the same time. I cannot like start a project and finish it. I've got to have like another project to do while parts dry, or when I'm not feeling inspired on one thing, I'm off doing something else. So let's see.
Yeah, I'm curious I would like to see some of I wanted to ask you about these pieces. Is this a recent development in your practice, these sort of like craft collage based works?
Yeah, actually, like, so all my life, even with tattoos, I've been working in 2 dimensions, and this kind of desire to work in 3 dimension, it came on slowly. At first, I think I started doing things like this with found objects. These are some things that were in my sewing box. And then I found out that artists were having wood cut by laser.
Mm-hmm.
So the hearts and that moon are laser cut. So that's still like two-dimensional, right? But the eye, like the eye is embroidered, and it starts to become 3-dimensional. And then this piece here, like I had the center piece cut out and then laser, just because I needed to order like a bunch of stuff. Like there's a minimum price, so I ended up like ordering more things than I really needed to.
Oh, got
That's
it.
like dangerous, because you end up like going, someday I'm gonna do this, you know, finish this. So it's like,
yeah,
projects pile up. So I wasn't quite sure what I was gonna do with it for a while, and then I started like thinking, this needs to be like sculpted. Like, so I used air drying clay.
it looks great.
And that's been painted on. So these are not real beads. Those are clay beads that I made. And I wasn't sure what to do with the center, and I had been working on something like this, but it wasn't the right size. So I had another laser piece like cut with a longer face. And then the rays are Fimo, but
What is that?
Fimo clay is like a craft clay, yeah, that you bake in the oven. And I recently was at an art show, and I asked, what's that material? It looked like porcelain, and they said it was ceramic froide, which means cold ceramic.
Mm-hmm.
And then the lady says it's basically Fimo. I was like, oh, that's great. I'm going to use that on
But actually, that might be
use that on my CV, because I can't like say that's Fimo because
Yeah, no,
that's
but
too crafty.
there is something called porcelain clay that I think is the exact same thing. So you could also, I would look it up to see if it's the same thing, but I'm pretty sure it
So
is
yeah,
because I just discovered this stuff
it's
too.
more like we call that a noble material in French.
Hmm.
So I had the Fimo raise, and then I was like, it looks really empty.
Hmm.
And then so I had the idea to do these clouds, and the clouds. So I cut out the laser base of the shape, and then I built it up using gesso, like
Oh,
modern gesso.
yeah.
So it's really it turned out really rough. It's less smooth than like
Oh,
the
but I like
airbrush
the
way.
differences in texture, especially with a piece that, like, what I like about these pieces is that they're causing you to edit down a little bit too, so they're a little bit more minimal, but then you're playing with the bringing in these extra elements like the texture that you're playing with here in the clouds versus what the smooth texture that's in the centerpiece. And I love that you're bringing in these found elements, but they're not going overboard with being like too crafty. To me, they look very much like they remind me of like vintage Valentines, like Victorian Valentines. So I think that's really lovely.
Yeah.
But I'm a craft-based artist, largely, and I love seeing when things start to become three-dimensional, and get a little bit crafty. So I love this direction that you're going
Yeah,
in.
it wasn't intentional. This textured part of the I wasn't sure at first. I was like, is that really cloud-like? And then because I was working, it was white. And then once I painted it black, I was like, the texture is like, I couldn't be more happy with how the texture turned out. This is another piece here that was one of the first pieces that started becoming three-dimensional. And
They have like a really luscious like sophistication about them. There's just something really alluring about all of the materials.
the yeah, I don't know if it's very romantic to reveal that the silver rays are icicle,
For
plastic
Christmas,
icicle Christmas.
for
Yeah,
yeah, I use those in my artwork
which
too.
inspired me for the form of my own Fimo rays, and this one actually has the two. This is the Fimo one here, and then
Hmm.
this is but every piece I'm just kind of like following the muse. This looked really empty with just the red rays, so then I ended
Hmm.
up adding the Fimo rays, and the Fimo rays I had some left over, and that's what gave me the idea to
Yeah.
like do Fimo rays around that.
Well, I think
Let's see.
I think I like where you're going with the pieces that you're like 100% sort of crafting the texture yourself versus, I do like, obviously, I recognize those icicles. I use them too, but I think it's just elevating the pieces a little bit more, pushing them a little bit more, and making them just feel a little bit more elevated whenever you're using, your own things. And I also have a question too, because that the pieces that you were just showing definitely to me relate to a sort of early 20th century surrealist aesthetic as well. And I know that that is something that's interesting to
Well,
you.
that's
What is
yeah, that's
influencing?
one of the reasons why I'm in France is because I'm really a fan of the surrealist period and also literature
Okay.
that's happening at a certain period pre-war.
Oh, I
This
love
goes,
these.
yeah, this goes with the I piece. So
Hmm.
it's there's three main heart shapes, and then each one has its own. So there's a gold one, there's a silver one, and there's a red one. So silver is tears.
Yeah,
The red is blood, and the gold ones are um, honey.
I love those.
And so I need to show those all together in a black space, and I have an idea for a performance art piece, which kind of will be a ritual, and I will have like a center altar, and I will do like a ritualistic performance with those pieces.
So wait, would you be hand holding them, or would they go on the wall like an
Yeah,
installation?
it would be an installation of the paintings with the tiers decorating like around, and then the center, the center part of the room would have an altar on the floor in the center with the performance.
Cool. Yeah, I'm very interested to see you do more performance work, and I like that you're going in the sculptural direction too. Because I think I saw on your Instagram that you were completing
Oh
your
yes.
first
So
sculpture.
the slowly, slowly I was working towards really getting into sculpture. I think maybe a lot of artists go that route where the 2D is like, this was another piece that I made that was, I fabricated the dice myself.
I love
And it's
it.
actually something that's in a painting, like these little dancing dice are
Mhm.
in a painting of mine. And so I imagine this like going into like a small fake theater with like like a curtain with like some things going on.
I kind of
And
just
so
like it as the object, though.
yeah,
I think
it's
it's really
a really nice
interesting.
object on its own, but she's like calling for her own like stage. So this piece here. This is like full on sculpture. Um, and when I started it, I had no idea if I was capable of sculpting figures, and I knew that to do the proportions of a face that I just did not feel confident enough. So I had a doll head that I covered in paper mache. This is all paper mache.
Mhm.
Um, I covered the doll head, and then I started to sculpt. This is so this is what she will look like eventually. She's the,
Oh,
she's the heart,
yeah.
and the other figure is the mind. And
You have
so
sort of a
they're struggling, they're fighting it out. So it's actually it's the same
yeah,
woman, and
yeah.
she's her heart and her mind are just like struggling, fighting it out. Um, and so what I did was I took coat hangers and I just built up a structure. Let's see, I'm going to turn the camera around. I had the proportions because I already had the drawing.
Oh wow, the drawing's really cool.
So
And I really like the baby doll faces actually because I think it makes sense with the your work with the kind of imagery that you
yes,
train.
childlike, yes,
Yeah,
it's
and I do you like Nikki de Saint Phalle?
yeah.
Yeah, this makes me feel like you're moving into sort of that direction, which I really love. I saw her show at MoMA PS1, I think it was last year or the year before that, and it was really great. She has all these like small maquettes of these larger things that she made, and I thought that they were actually more interesting than some of the larger works, and this is definitely reminding me of that.
Yeah, and she's working through trauma
Hmm.
as I do with her art. So yeah, it was just like the basic skeleton out of coat hangers, and then like balled up newspaper and scotch tape until I got like to a certain thickness, and then I took powdered paper mache and start shaping things out and smoothing things out, and eventually I've got to put a layer of plaster on that and
Hmm.
then sand it down, and then I can start the painting. Oh, I wanted to show you. Um, let's see.
Oh, I love it. Is that going to go inside?
Yeah, let me see if I can do it and hold the camera at the same time. You're looking.
Beautiful. You make a video from that.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
excited about this.
it's
I
fun.
think it's
It's
going to look great.
playful. Yeah, I have a.
Yeah.
I'm really like in a like a super inspired creative energy right now, and it's all because like tattooing is like really slowed down. There's like a whole new generation of tattooers out there, and that's made me like wonder, is it time to like to do something else? It's really motivated me, and it's also it's scary, but at the same time it's like it's pushed me to explore and try things out that I've been wanting to, and I didn't have time. So it's almost like this had to happen for me to like evolve.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I know I'm gonna look back at what I'm doing right this period and just be like super happy that I went through it. Let me show you some other big paintings. Let's see.
I'm actually
There's this
curious, can
one.
we Oh, okay. Oh, is this and this is a work in progress?
This is, yeah, it's not done. It's close to being done though. So you can get an idea of what it will look like. This is oil pastels. Is like a really, I'm a really tight painter. I like to do details and like,
Mm-hmm.
this is acrylic. And so this is like, it's super rough.
You know, actually, Sunny, I really like that you're experimenting with these different materials because I think that it helps to separate your work a little bit more from the traditional tattooing style, which is not a bad thing, but I think that, you know, those are two different creative practices for you. And some of the work that I am most attracted to that you've done are your drawings that have like the fine, lines that are showing up. Like you have these, but they're also like you have some other paintings that are like that too. Like I know you had the two like high heels, and there's like one that's a little bit more flat and more, to me, feels more like illustrative or like tattoo style, and then another one that has these like visible sort of strokes or marks. And I really like the ones with this like visible mark making that's happening because it's really combining that
Oh yeah,
style
the shoe, yeah, and the
and
hair,
aesthetic,
yeah.
and like your drawings, yeah, and the watercolors. And I think it's also like there's this because I think you can still get like detailed with these different textures and marks, but it's also like paring things down a little bit too, and really pumping up the sort of sci-fi surrealism that's really exciting for me in your practice right now.
I was really touched by the movie about Jackson Pollock. Like it showed Lee Krasner in her studio, just like laboriously like making perfect strokes. And he's in his studio and he takes a tube of paint and he's just like
Yeah.
putting it on there and
Okay.
like, and it just said so much that scene. And I was like, yeah, I need to loosen up. How can I loosen up? You know, and
Yeah.
it's even when I try to loosen up because I'm a tattoo artist, it's hard to be loose.
Yes.
But
Yep.
when I loosen up, and it's a piece like this is fun because I can loosen up. I am I'm not going with like a totally finished drawing when I got started, and a lot of things are like pretty rough. And this is like it's a growing experience to do things that way. I really like working big too because I feel like I immerse myself
Mm-hmm.
into the piece, like I can step into it.
Mm-hmm.
And working on smaller pieces, I feel that all artists in general are vampirized, and there's the the voyeur, the person who looks at it, is vampirized by the work because they just kind of fall into it. They have to like get really, really close. This painting's almost done,
Oh, that's
really, really close to being done.
I
So
really like, I would love to see this one to the right that has the
faces,
yeah, this one is really appealing to me.
just finished
I
it.
love it.
This a
What?
lot of times it happens where I do a drawing for a tattoo client.
Mhm.
Tattoo client was, her and her husband were Gemini and Lion, and she just wanted the like astrological signs, and I was like, that is so freaking boring. Will you please let me like draw something better, you know, like something
This
more.
is
Yeah,
so,
and
I maybe that's why I
she
love
ended
this
up,
because I'm a Gemini and Leo too.
she did she and she didn't end up going for it, so I was like, well, I love it,
I
I'm
love
gonna
it.
paint it. But also it like it speaks to me for the duality like in me, like the struggle between heart and mind, like, and that we have two selves, we have a dark self and we have a light self, and I am a lion, and the lion speaks to like the more like wild untamed part of you, and this and the whole idea of the hybrid of like what can I learn from the animal kingdom in order to evolve into the future. I read a really great quote recently about we would be better to study our inner cockroach or housefly than try to heal the inner child. And I was like,
I mean, yeah, that
yes,
makes sense for
right.
the world that we're in now. Or maybe have always been in and we just didn't, you know, we just missed
I
at the
wanted to show because I know that you love textile, and I
Mhm.
do am trying to get into textile. Like the butterfly I
Cool.
showed you is some forage into textile. This is a the start of something I need to like think about a jungle kind of background, like how I'm going to do it. I'm thinking I want to do spray paint to make it like a totally like different feeling. And this is something that, I mean, it's, for me, it just looks like, I love sock monkeys, but it looks almost too normal to me. So I might do a bigger version, and then you can like see his like anatomy.
Yeah, I think,
to make it less like cutesy and less like this could be just like a doll that you buy, you know,
yeah.
at a children's store. But this is like actually a character from a comic book that I like to do. It's about a girl and her monkey. He's like a circus monkey who dances.
I love the
like inner child.
I love this textile direction and this exploration of duality and the inner child. And I think that, you know, like, I think what works really well for you is whenever you're speaking, you're using your aesthetics to communicate almost like universal stories, or like anybody can sort of access and understand what's being portrayed there. Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah,
What is this?
you remember we talked, I saw that you were making some artificial plants.
Mm-hmm.
So I am working on some stuff, these artificial plants that will go in an installation with the wahinis that I showed you, the 2-dimensional wahinis.
Mm-hmm.
This will be some decoration. So yeah, it's not enough just to have an art show with the paintings hanging. I need to like create a kind of immersive environment.
I know all about that.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's got to be like a place where I want to go inside and like fantasize or play
Mm-hmm.
or do a performance. Just a white cube with the paintings on the wall, it's not doing it for me anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's just such a commercial feel too, you know, and I think if it's important to you, it's important to me in my practice that people feel welcome in a space and not necessarily are an art collector or curator that is coming in to interact with my work. I want the general public to interact with my work. And I think creating these like immersive environments, and like you say, that invite you to come in and be playful is really appealing to me. I want people to really enjoy the experience and create meaning from it.
Yeah, in tattooing, I learned from a guy who was really, he really believed in the power of storytelling as a means to kind of distract the client from the pain. So I've always been like a voracious reader since a little child, and I escaped from this world into books, and I think that even oral storytelling is a way to connect with people and to understand the world is through these archetypes and stories, and that's why I've always been attracted to narrative and illustrative work. And I think I've seen it's been coming back into fashion because when I was involved with the low bar art scene in California, illustration was like a dirty word. It was like an insult. Oh, that's illustrative. Like critics would like say, oh, that's illustrative, as if you know that's not important. But now I've seen a lot of, it's either like contemporary art hijacking that movement, or because we have new stories, we have a lot of stories that need to be expressed. John Kerry Marshall said, you know, growing up, he never saw any Black people going into museums. He was an art lover. And so people need to go into a museum and feel like, oh, that's me, you know, or they can identify what's hanging on the wall. So today we have stories of people who are non-genre or transgenre, and we need. I think that one of the only ways to show that well is through painting, because an artist really puts a lot of themselves into a painting, and I think that transmits to the viewer. And I think visual language is much more powerful. I mean, you don't need to speak the language to understand. You know, like it's visual language. It's universal, and I think that's what maybe one of the reasons why illustrative work is coming back is because there's new stories. There's stories that are now acceptable to hear, because before people were too scared to hear these alternative stories. And
Right.
I think it's a huge opportunity for people to see themselves when they go into an institute, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's also just like a backlash at the art world who would say that sort of like a illustrative style is, you know, hierarchically low because it is more related to like primitive culture, like you know, older parts of history, or you know, like that way of just like simply communicating and past you know, civilizations and things like that. And then like the peak or whatever with contemporary art was like being super abstracted, super minimalism. That was like totally the opposite end of that stuff. And now it's more saying like, no, that stuff is super elitist, and you know, we are making more room for other traditions and
Yes,
voices. And
it's elitist because you have to have an art education to understand what an abstract painting is. But I
yeah,
think that the
yes,
critics were also right, because they're like, I don't want the artist imposing what he wants to say on me. I want to be able to look at a painting and just like, you know, I decide what's going on. I decide, you know, and
yeah,
that's what you get. You look at abstract art, but I walking into a museum and I see abstract art and I'm like, I can do that in an hour. Like
yeah.
that doesn't, I'm not attracted.
Why is this important?
But also, yeah, why is it important? You really need to have an art education to understand, and that's elitist. Like you need to be educated. You need to know all this stuff in order to understand what's going on. And so, yeah, they're right in saying that illustrative work is more popular, and that,
It's more
you know,
accessible.
popular can sometimes be dangerous. I understand all that, but I still will defend. I
Yeah.
will defend like underground art and illustrative art and like technique, like really awesome technique. I will defend that with all of my heart and force.
I mean, yeah, I think that you just like have built such a spectacular practice around this illustrative style that really demonstrates that as an artist, you can fit into lots of different pockets of the art world all at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a really fabulous position to be in, and it's something that I myself strive for. Before I could be like, you know, somebody that is exhibiting in a more contemporary art context, but then also maybe I want to be a Meow Wolf artist at one point or something, you know?
This is a box of two-dimensional dice that I painted. I
I,
really like
you know, I
it has,
wore a dice today for
oh,
you.
thank you. I'm obsessed with dice. I have done some writing about why I think I'm obsessed with dice. I wrote an article on my blog recently, and then you've probably noticed. Well, maybe I'll show you.
I
I
also just
have
want to say
in my
it's
house.
we're at 12:44 right now.
Oh, we
If
can
anybody
wrap up.
who's yeah,
So
just if
we'll
anybody who's
finish
tuned,
on good luck charms.
yes, yes. I just want
Because
to
I'm
say though, if
obsessed.
anybody has questions, please pop them
Oh yeah.
into the comments, and I will make sure they get to Sunny. Please, Sunny, take
Oh
us away.
yes. Sorry. Yes, if you have any questions, please let us know before we wrap up. Obsessed with symbols of good luck. I'm not a gambler, but dice are really easy to collect. They're small. The plastic ones kind of remind me of candy.
Mhm.
Um, and I started recently wondering if it was something to do with whether I thought that I'm just a really lucky person to have such a blessed life, or do I deserve it? Like, because like, I know that I do have some things that are holding me back because I don't think I deserve. So I think that the dice is kind of like, it could be a spiritual object for me as a reminder about thinking about merit and luck.
Mhm.
Also, like I like got into the numerology about the fact that it's four-sided, and it's so a four-sided object has stability, and
Yeah.
that's something I really didn't have growing up, and that I needed, and I was searching for, and I found. Also, the sixth side of the dice reminds me that that I could look at every situation at least 6 different ways, you know, and also knowing that one side will always be on the bottom and the rest it stays a mystery. But so the dice like has many different. It's like I started collecting them intuitively, and
Mm-hmm.
and also I work in my painting like that. Sometimes I'll come up with an image, have no idea. I just like the idea, and then later I'll realize all the psychological stuff, the
Yeah.
message that I was to tell myself, almost like a sort of a dream thing, like you were talking about the surrealist.
Yeah.
So I work it out in the painting, and then it becomes clear to me when it's finished what it was, what
Yeah.
it was. And so the whole idea of me collecting dice all these years, it became really clear to me more recently as I decided to kind of take the symbols that are repeating themselves in my art, and
Yeah.
kind of try to break them down and figure out
Yeah. Why?
what it is.
What is this unconscious obsession? Yeah, because I also love dice, and I have not quite verbalized it in the way that you have, and I just love your explanation for it. We do have a question. Someone has asked, I'd really like to know how you manage your time with so many practices coming together as one.
Um, it's sort of like as I what I feel like doing. I've heard people saying like should, want, and need, like looking at the pile of work, it should, want, and need. That being said, I think I'm totally bulimic when it comes to my ideas, and I start projects like a lot of it comes from tattoo clients, like unfinished sketches that were kind of like a related to a tattoo, that I have like files and files and files of stuff, and then I start feeling guilty about not finishing them, and I do get off on when a project's finished. So I go, it's kind of like one day I'll write about it. My work flow is like wax and wane. It's like the stages of the moon. Wane would be like the discipline, like serious discipline, getting things done, and waxing would be like you know, a pregnant woman, like it's just like getting bigger and bigger, and that's the bulimia, and that's when like the studio's a mess, and like I'm just like doing 50 million things, and then that becomes like too much to handle, and you like got to come back down again. I've read the book The War of Art, which is really good. It talks about resistance, and there's so many things that I'm like, I'm not good enough, I'm not ready, I can't finish this project right now because I don't know what to do with it. And then sometimes it needs some time to marinate. Right now I'm into finishing things, so I've cataloged everything that's not finished.
I did see
And
that. You have a couple of projects you just posted, like just finish this one, and I actually had that in my notes. Ask her about why she's finishing all these unfinished projects right now.
well, I have the time because I'm not tattooing very much, and I only have this studio until February, so I'm trying to like really do the maximum amount of big work and toxic work and messy work that I can't do at home.
Yeah.
I hope that I'll have a bigger, nicer studio.
You will, because you're going to accept that. And you deserve it.
But so I make these lists, and they're kind of like there's like maybe 10 drawings in a plastic sheet folder. I love to put things in a plastic sheet folder.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've made it like a visual list that helps me a lot. And then I'll highlight the things that I want to do. You know, like the desire's there. And then I know later the desire will be there for other things. And then I take a black Sharpie when I finish it, and and then in just looking at this thing where like the black starts to show, like starting to get really black, you know, that means that I'm like making some progress. That's been helping me a lot, but it's always like what I want to do. Like if I don't want to do it, there's resistance there. Sometimes I will push through the resistance, and sometimes I'll just be like, okay, just work for 5 minutes on it. That helps.
Yeah.
Like if you just trick yourself saying I'm just going to work on it for 5 minutes or 15 minutes, then you end up working on it for an hour.
You get into it, and then you're like, oh, I don't want to stop this, and then it's like I'm already dedicating time to it right now, and if I don't want to do it later, I might as well just do it. Yeah. So we have one more question. How do you come back down from? Oh, sorry.
Real quick, like I hate putting in the eyelashes. Like I'll like totally procrastinate because it's like if you make a mistake, it's like you're fucked.
Yeah.
So like I'll like spend like weeks and weeks like putting it off, and then the day that I do it, I'm like, oh, it's not as hard as I thought it was gonna be.
Yeah, and sometimes what I'll do is I'll pick the things that I want to do the least, like uh, first thing in the day, if I'm able to work earlier in the day when I'm like wide awake and functional. And then I pick things that are more like monotonous and otherwise pleasant to do when I can kind of have something on in the background and it's later in the evening and I'm starting to get brain dead. So I kind of like figure out where my energy level is during the day and apply what the task is at that point in the day. Um, oh yeah, so I just have one more question. How do you come back down from the lists? You get into this list mode. That was a
Oh,
question from Deb.
it's organic. I think I'm just like you know, as a woman, I think you're used to these cycles in your life, and it just kind of like it's not exactly a 1 month cycle for me. It's like a life cycle where I notice that I'm in wax period or I'm in wane period, but like maybe if you're talking about coming down, I relate that to drugs, and I used to use a lot of drugs, and I've been clean and sober for 24 years.
Wow.
And that doesn't mean that I'm not an addict anymore. And today, like my addictions are like healthier, but they're not healthy. Like overworking myself is a real addiction. It's something that I need to pay attention to, and I'm like really aware about it. And making these lists is like one of the pleasures. It's one of my things that I like get off on, and it can be too much sometimes. This like I don't feel good enough about myself unless I've like accomplished a lot of stuff during the day, right?
Yeah.
And I don't feel good about myself unless everyone loves my artwork. Like I'll someday when I'm famous and rich, I'll feel better. But it's not like that won't make me feel better. It's like a deep healing that, and it's something that I need to work on myself. And making things like helps me. It's therapeutic. It helps me to realize. It helps me work through stuff in my head, but it's not the problem. So you have to be super, super aware of where you're at on the cycle, and are
Yeah.
you taking care of yourself? Is it really that important, or is like are other things more important in life?
Yeah.
Enjoying your life,
Totally.
like you don't want to like be working, and then you have an art opening, it lasts like 5 seconds, and then you have a crash, like you were thinking you were going to have some kind of like reaction that you didn't get, and it's like, you're just crushed afterwards, it's like you don't want to like have these like huge ups and downs. You want to be kind of like, enjoying the highs and
Yeah.
don't let them get too high, and don't let the lows come, but because if you do let the highs get too high, then it can come crushing down. So
Yeah.
that's why I was saying I'm really like in a phase where I'm like, what I want to do, like what do I feel like doing next,
No,
and
it
try to
sounds
like
like
have fun with it.
you're more invested in being more present. And that's really important. And I think that, I've been on that roller coaster of the highs and lows, the crashing and then the nothing and all of that. And I was just listening to somebody on a podcast talk about that as like creative people were always like trying to like get to the next thing, and that it's always disappointing when you get to the thing that you wanted because you were so in your head about it that you weren't able to just enjoy everything that's been happening leading up to that moment. And I think that that's really important. It's just finding our happiness and our presence of like what you're wanting to do that day, and that way that whenever you get to the big thing that is really exciting to you, you haven't invested all of your energy into that moment.
Yeah,
So
back to
I think
past and future, and like the in between would be the present. Like
yeah,
try not to stay too much in the past or in the future, and it's like it's hard to stay present and not like
Yes.
future project or you know, be nostalgic or regretting something that happened in the past. So it's all these tensions, and the tension between the heart and the mind. It's like that's where my art is. It's like it's in this, what's going on with me. Like I'm really sharing a lot of my psychological state through my art, and I hope it does to touch people, and that they feel that they feel the love, and I hope that they feel the kind of the resolution of things
Yeah.
in a for them. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, that is great. That's so wonderful. And I love that this conversation just came back full circle from beginning to end. Makes so much sense talking with you. Thank you so much for sharing today, Sunny, and thank
Yeah,
you everybody who joined us. Yeah, and if you have any more questions for Sunny, you know, feel free to DM her. Please check out her YouTube channel and see that wonderful footage of the Sci-Fi Western show 20-year anniversary. And just be sure to follow Sunny and keep up with all of her amazing projects so we can see all the cool stuff that you're experimenting with in your studio. And thank you again. And everybody have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.